Have you ever asked yourself why the universe would allow you to meet someone you can't have? Why it would create such a strong connection, only to make it impossible to stay together? It's one of the cruelest feelings, to recognize a bond so deep, so undeniable, and yet know, somewhere deep inside, that it can't be fulfilled. That no matter how much you both might want it, life, timing, circumstances, or even your own growth demands something else. And it's in these moments that we realize the universe doesn't always send us people to stay. Sometimes it sends them to awaken parts of us we would have never touched otherwise. Carl Jung believed that meaningful connections don't come from the rational mind. They rise from the unconscious. They are part of the self's unfolding, a way for the deeper psyche to call us toward transformation. When two souls meet and ignite something powerful, it's rarely about building a simple, easy life together. It's often about triggering the very growth that otherwise would have taken years or might never have happened at all. You meet someone, and suddenly all the things you thought were healed surface again. Insecurities you buried, wounds you pretended not to feel, dreams you abandoned long ago start whispering back to you. It's not accidental, and it's orchestrated, and while part of you wants to hold on, to force the connection into something safe and permanent, another part, a deeper, wiser part, knows that the real purpose was never about possession. It was about awakening. The human heart craves certainty, belonging, permanence. But the soul craves growth, truth, awakening. And sometimes those two desires tear us apart inside. You can feel intense love for someone and still not be meant to walk a lifelong path with them. Love is not always a destination. Sometimes it's a doorway, and once you've stepped through, the door closes behind you. Jung spoke about synchronicity, the idea that events, meetings, and connections happen not by chance, but through the alignment of deeper realities. When you meet someone and feel an overwhelming recognition, it's not just chemistry, it's a collision of timelines, a meeting orchestrated by the unconscious forces that guide human destiny. The pain that follows is not a mistake. It's a necessary fracture in the shell you've built around yourself. You may think, if the universe wanted to teach me, why couldn't it do it without breaking me? Without giving me something so beautiful, only to take it away? But growth, real growth, rarely happens in comfort. It's the breaking, the longing, the unanswered questions that force you into depths you would have never explored otherwise. It's in the loss that you find yourself, or at least the parts you were afraid to face. The universe doesn't operate by human standards of fairness. It doesn't prioritize comfort over transformation. It moves in patterns of expansion, in waves of awakening. And sometimes, the price of awakening is the loss of what you most deeply wanted. The person you can't forget was not a punishment. They were a mirror, a catalyst, a messenger carrying a piece of your own soul's forgotten story. You needed to meet them. You needed to love them. You needed to lose them. Because through that process, you would remember something essential about who you are. Something that no amount of comfort, no amount of easy love could have ever revealed to you. When you can't forget someone, it's because they touched the parts of you that are still unfinished. They stirred what was dormant. They pulled you toward the life you were meant to awaken into, not because they were supposed to walk beside you, but because they were meant to open the door you were too afraid to approach alone. It hurts, it confuses, it feels unjust. But when you look deeper, when you stop asking, why did they leave, and start asking, what did they awaken in me? That's when the true meaning begins to emerge. Maybe they awakened your ability to feel again after you shut yourself down for years. Maybe they showed you the patterns you needed to break, the self-sabotage, the fear, the self-betrayal. Maybe they cracked open the wall you built around your heart, reminding you that vulnerability is not weakness, but life itself. Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. You met them and you changed. They touched your chemistry, not just your emotions. And that change was the real purpose. Not the fantasy, not the fairy tale, but the alchemy of the soul. You're not broken because you can't forget them. You're not weak because it still hurts. You're human, and your soul knows that some connections are meant to carve themselves into you, because the person you become afterward will never be the same. Maybe you weren't meant to be with them. Maybe you were meant to meet yourself through them. It's easy to believe that if a connection is real, it should work, that love should be enough, that mutual feelings should naturally lead to a shared life. But the truth is harsher and deeper than we want to admit. Not every real connection is meant for permanence. Some are meant to burn bright and leave ashes, not roots. The universe sends certain people to collide with you, not to stay, but to ignite something sacred and painful at the same time. They awaken your dormant longings, your deepest fears or goals, your unfinished healing. They walk into your life like a match to dry wood, and nothing looks the same afterward. You feel the burn and you think you've lost something, when in reality, you've been set free from something you didn't even know was trapping you. Carl Jung often emphasized the importance of confronting the unconscious, the parts of ourselves we don't see, don't want to see, or can't yet accept. Love, especially the kind that feels faded yet impossible, forces us to meet these hidden parts. It brings the unconscious to the surface with brutal clarity. You see your neediness, your fear of abandonment, your idealizations, your wounds, and you can't unsee them. When two souls meet but cannot stay together, it's often because their meeting was about activation, not attachment. One soul needed to catalyze the other's growth. One needed to mirror back the unseen truths. And once the mirror does its job, the physical connection often dissolves, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. You might think you failed because you couldn't make it work, but maybe succeeding would have kept you asleep. Maybe holding onto them would have kept you trapped in old patterns, unable to evolve beyond the self you were before they arrived. We often want relationships to be safe harbors, comfort zones. But many of the most important connections are storms. Violent, beautiful, transformative. They tear apart everything false and leave you raw, exposed, terrified. And in that terror, you find your real strength. You find the parts of yourself you had buried under years of survival and compromise. Jung wrote that loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Meeting someone who sees you, really sees you, can be the most exhilarating and terrifying experience of all. You realize how much you've hidden, how much you've dulled your own edges just to fit into a world that demands safety over authenticity. Sometimes the universe sends someone who disrupts your silence, who forces you to confront what you've been suppressing, who breaks the false peace you've been clinging to. And while part of you wants to hold on to them, to make them stay, another part, the wiser part, knows they came to tear down your walls, not to live inside them. You don't lose a soul connection by losing the person. You lose it by refusing to see what it was meant to teach you. If you hold on to bitterness, regret, or resentment, you stay stuck in the wound. But if you lean into the pain, if you let it show you where you were asleep, where you were hiding, where you were afraid, then you transform. The universe does not send people into your life randomly. It sends lessons, awakenings, and mirrors. Every connection is a message. Some messages are delivered through love and stability. Others come wrapped in heartbreak and loss. But the sender is the same, the part of the universe that wants you to become who you truly are. You might meet someone who feels like home, but who is destined only to show you that home is something you must first build within yourself. You might love someone deeply, only to realize that real love sometimes means letting go. Not because the love was false, but because holding on would betray your own becoming. Pain is not always punishment. Sometimes pain is the crack where the light gets in. The person you can't be with, the one you can't forget, might have been the key that unlocked a door inside you. a door you didn't even know was locked. It's not fair. It's not easy. It's not what you wanted, but it is meaningful. And meaning, in the Jungian sense, is what the soul seeks most. When you feel the ache of missing them, remember, you're not just missing them. You're missing the version of yourself that existed when they were near. You're mourning the innocence, the possibility, the dream. But what you gained, the new awareness, the deeper self-knowledge, the awakened heart, cannot be taken away. You might never fully forget them. Some people leave imprints too deep to erase, but you can transform what their presence awakened in you. You can carry the lessons, the love, the pain, not as chains, but as wings. They were never sent to complete you. They were sent to break you open, to push you closer to your real self, to remind you that the deepest connections aren't about possession. They are about evolution. The universe doesn't send who you want. It sends who you need. And sometimes the soul you needed most is the one you couldn't keep. We often think that if something causes us deep pain, it must have been wrong. That if a connection doesn't last, it must have been a mistake. But the soul doesn't work like that. Jung understood that life isn't about finding perpetual comfort. It's about individuation, becoming the truest, deepest version of yourself. And the path to that self is rarely smooth. It's raw, it's disruptive, it's filled with encounters that tear you open so you can rebuild yourself on a more honest foundation. The person you can't forget wasn't a wrong turn. They were a sacred interruption. They didn't derail your life. They pushed you toward the life you were meant to live, even if it meant tearing apart the fantasy you once clung to. You didn't love the wrong person. You loved at the wrong stage of your growth. Or maybe you loved someone who wasn't ready to love themselves, and therefore couldn't meet you where you needed to be met. And that's not failure. It's initiation. The universe sometimes sends you the wrong person at the right time. Not to keep, but to awaken. To peel back the layers of complacency. To burn away the illusions you didn't even know you were trapped inside. It feels brutal because it touches your deepest hopes. The hope that love will heal all wounds, that connection will erase loneliness, that another person can anchor you to a place you can finally call safe. But no one can be your anchor. No one can fill the spaces you refuse to fill yourself. And the ones who leave are often the ones who reveal just how much you still have to return home, to your own soul. When you meet someone who awakens you, you feel alive in ways you didn't know you could. But when they leave, or when it becomes impossible, you're left standing in the wreckage, with the terrifying realization that the aliveness was never really about them. It was about you. It was always about you. They didn't give you something you lacked. They exposed something you already had. And now the real work begins, to nurture that spark without needing someone else to keep it alive. It's tempting to romanticize these connections, to believe that someday, maybe, things will align. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe it was all just bad timing. And maybe that's true. But clinging to the hope of reunion often blinds you to the real task at hand: integration. Taking what was awakened and weaving it into your own becoming. Jung taught that what you resist persists. If you resist the loss, resist the grief, resist the transformation, you stay trapped. You stay waiting, hoping, bleeding out in a story that already gave you everything it was meant to give. The universe doesn't waste energy. It doesn't send people into your life by accident. Every soul encounter, even the painful, unfinished ones, serves a purpose. And the sooner you stop asking, why couldn't we be together, and start asking, what was this connection here to show me, the sooner you step into your next evolution. Maybe they awakened your capacity to love more deeply than you ever have before. Maybe they triggered a rage you needed to face. Maybe they mirrored your hidden fears. Maybe they called out your truest self from the depths where you buried it. Or maybe, just maybe, they showed you how much more you were capable of becoming. Not every connection is meant for forever. Some are meant for ignition. Some are meant for resurrection. Some are meant for awakening. You can mourn the loss. You can grieve the future that will never happen. But don't lose sight of what you gained. A deeper understanding of yourself. A more honest relationship with your own soul. There's a particular kind of grief that comes when you realize the universe sent you love not to keep, but to transform you. It's quieter than heartbreak. It's deeper than sadness. It's the mourning of an old self, of an old way of seeing the world. And yet, beneath that grief, there is gratitude. Gratitude for having felt something real. Gratitude for having loved courageously. Gratitude for having been cracked open wide enough to let new light in. It's easy to become bitter, easy to blame them, to blame the universe, to blame yourself. But bitterness is just pain that refuses to evolve. And your soul didn't come here to stay bitter. It came to grow. You are not the same person you were before them. That is not an accident. That is the point. So maybe you can't be with them. Maybe you were never meant to be, but you can honor what they gave you. The fire, the courage, the clarity. They were a bridge, not a destination. A storm, not a shelter. A lesson, not a lifetime. And if you carry that understanding forward, if you let the love, the pain, and the awakening shape you without hardening you, then nothing was wasted. Then you didn't lose them. You found yourself. And that, above all, was the reason they came. Some connections were never meant to be easy. They weren't sent to fit neatly into your life or to offer you comfort without growth. They were sent to disarm you, to expose the places inside you that were still asleep, still afraid, still hiding. When you meet someone you can't be with, it tests everything you believe about love, about destiny, about what you think you need. It forces you to question whether love is possession, whether connection is about permanence, or whether perhaps love is more sacred than simply holding on. Carl Jung believed that we are drawn to the people who carry pieces of ourselves we are meant to reclaim. Sometimes those pieces come wrapped in joy, tenderness, and shared life paths. Other times they come wrapped in chaos, in longing, in separation. Both are real. Both are sacred. The one you couldn't keep was not a failure. They were an awakening. They came to remind you that your heart is capable of more than survival. They came to remind you that pain does not mean something went wrong. It means something mattered. There are moments when it will still hurt, when memories flash in ways you can't control, when a song, a place, a scent will bring them back to you for a moment, raw and alive. Let it, don't fight it. Pain does not mean you are broken. It means you have lived. And when the longing comes, instead of asking, why them, ask, what did they wake up in me that needed to live? The universe is not cruel, it is precise. It gives us the encounters we need, not the ones we think we want. It strips away our illusions so that something truer can be born. And often, the deeper the connection felt, the more powerful the transformation it demands. If you are mourning someone you cannot be with, honor that mourning. Honor the love, even if it didn't end the way you wanted. Honor the growth, the expansion, the pieces of yourself that were uncovered through knowing them. And then, slowly, without rushing, start to build a life that honors what they awakened. Not a life built around the loss, but around the aliveness they uncovered in you. Because the real tragedy would not be losing them. It would be losing the person you were becoming because of them. You carry the lesson. You carry the fire. You carry the love. They were a chapter, not the whole book. And sometimes the most beautiful chapters are the ones we can never revisit, only remember with quiet gratitude. Thank you for being here, for choosing to walk through the uncomfortable places inside yourself, for facing the questions that have no easy answers. If this message resonated with you, if you've ever felt the bittersweet weight of a connection you couldn't hold on to, you're not alone. I invite you to share your story in the comments below. Sometimes just putting it into words can bring a kind of healing. If you found something meaningful in this video, consider leaving a like. It helps these messages reach others who might be walking through the same invisible journey. And if you'd like to continue exploring these deeper paths of growth, transformation, and soul awakening, feel free to subscribe. There are more stories to uncover, more truths to remember, and maybe, just maybe, more awakenings waiting in places we least expect.